Hey everybody, it's Josh here again, and today we're going to talk about WGU and talk about some of the benefits and drawbacks of their competency-based learning model. I'm going to talk about the legitimacy of the model and why it's good, and hopefully change the minds of some of those people who don't really understand it. Simply put, if you think like this person does, I'm going to change your mind today. I hope, anyway. We're also going to talk about the traditional education system quite a bit, and I'm going to use some nice graphics to kind of explain why some people who go to WGU are able to finish within 6 months as opposed to 4 years from a brick and mortar school. So if you're mad about people being able to graduate with a bachelor's in 6 months, go ahead and smash the like button and let's get started. Just real quick before we actually get started, I just want to say this is the first video that I'm making after I hit 1,000 subscribers. I didn't think I would hit 1K this fast. It's really crazy. So I just want to say thank you for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel. I really appreciate it. So thanks. Before we talk about Western governance model, let's talk about the traditional college and the actual traditional bachelor's degree a little bit. So talking about the traditional college system, like that is the normal brick and mortar college where you go inside and like sit down and learn, having those is much better than having no college system at all, but I think they could be improved on quite a bit. So one of the main problems I have with traditional brick and mortar colleges is they kind of imply that all bachelor's degrees take like the same time to complete. That is, they all like conveniently fit the curriculum in like a 4-year time span, and it just doesn't really make sense. In actuality, this is not even close to being true. Like if you take a bachelor's degree in history, for example, or in communications, you'll look at like the little schedule that they provided and they'll fit everything in like a nice 4-year time span. And then you go from communications to looking at like a bachelor's in nuclear engineering, and all that is fit in a nice convenient 4-year time span. In reality, like the rigor and difficulty of these two different fields of study, they're not even close to being the same difficulty. It's not even close. So like, why are we cramming everything, or why are we like forcing everything, like stretching it out and forcing it to fit in the same 4-year time slot? It just doesn't really make sense. So let me be clear on something. I'm not saying like nuclear engineering is more important than history or communications. I'm just saying like the brain power and rigor and the time it takes to complete in general, it's going to be much larger for, nuclear engineering or any of the hard sciences versus something that is a little bit more like lofty and flexible, like business, for example. So to solidify this idea of what I'm talking about a little bit better, I'm going to use some illustrations here. So if we look at this graphic here, there's like a list of disciplines or a list of majors on the left. And then next to the disciplines / majors, there's a kind of sine wave looking graph. And the way I kind of design this is the more oscillations, the more rigorously difficult this major is to get a 4-year degree in. So for example, if we look at nuclear engineering and chemical engineering and electrical engineering, they tend to have more oscillations because you have to overcome a lot of things. Like you have to change the way you think about physics and life and everything. And you have to go through differential calculus, integral calculus, multivariable calculus, linear algebra. You have to learn maybe like calculus-based kinematics, calculus-based electromagnetism, a lot of difficult things that take a while to wrap your head around. Hence, they have more kind of oscillations. They have, quote, like kind of more difficulty points. And then the lower half, these disciplines don't really have a lot of like really difficult, rigorous things that you need to understand. So they have less oscillations. So basically, if you look at this, the more the graph goes up and down for that particular major, the more difficult it tends to be. Again, I just want to reiterate, this isn't a graph showing like which degrees are more important, because they're all arguably equally important. I'm talking about like academic rigor and difficulty here. That's all. So looking at the number of oscillations per major, I asked myself, like, why would any college do something like stretch out a communications or education degree to a 4-year time span when it just isn't necessary? It's very strange to me. It's like forcing a weird opportunity cost onto the students who don't necessarily need to waste an extra 2 years to learn a specific discipline. So we all know that person who originally had a chemical engineering major. After the first quarter, they decided it was like too hard, so they switched their major to business, and then they kind of like half-assedly do their schoolwork, and then at the end of every quarter, like 2 weeks before the quarter, they just study like really hard, and then they end up passing their final with like a 2.5 GPA or something. And then they just do this for the rest of like their academic career, and after 4 years they end up with their bachelor's degree and a 2.5 GPA or whatever it may be. If you think about it, this isn't really that much different from attending WGU, except for after you pass the class in WGU, instead of screwing around for like 10 months or whatever before you have to study for your next final, you just pass your class and then study hard and then pass the next class and then study hard and then pass the next class and the next class, and you keep doing that. And before you know it, you already graduated after only like 6 months or whatever it may be. So to kind of solidify our understanding of what I'm trying to talk about here, let's go ahead and look at this graph again. We're going to compare a chemical engineering degree with a business degree. If we count the difficulty or the number of oscillations in the chemical engineering degree, it's about 60 oscillations over the course of 4 years, or we can say like a difficulty of 60. If we count the business oscillations, there's about 15 in a 4-year period, so we can say the business degree has a difficulty of 15. These are like rough numbers. I didn't use anything to calculate these perfectly. They're just general numbers, okay? If someone were to attack the curriculum for the business degree with the same level of academic prowess and effort that's required to graduate in chemical engineering, who's to say that the graduation time for the business degree wouldn't be decreased from 4 years to 1 year or something similar? Simply put, I'm saying if you don't mess around and you try really hard and you put a lot of time and effort into attacking the business curriculum, you'll finish really fast, much faster than 4 years anyway. So I'm curious, like, why is it that somebody who took 4 years to finish a bachelor's degree is like more trusted than someone who took 6 months to finish it? People are assuming like, oh, like it must have been like so easy, they were able to finish it in 6 months, but like that's not really the case, right? Either they knew what they were doing or they just attacked the curriculum like really hard and they were able to finish it in 6 months. And going back to the graph here really quick, you might have noticed this before, but out of all the programs that WGU offers, in my opinion, computer science is probably the hardest one, just because it has stuff that takes a while to digest, like differential calculus, integral calculus, differential equations, all of those like discrete mathematics, a bunch of programming, data structures and algorithms. All that takes a while to kind of wrap your head around. And if you notice, you don't see a lot of posts about like, I finished WGU computer science in 6 months, like it was so fast. Like you just don't see that because it's not really possible to digest all of that stuff along with the other things that are required for the degree in like a 6 month time period. The only way that you'll be able to do this is if you're already like a developer or you already have like a strong command of like the advanced mathematics. So the reason why you see a lot of WGU posts of people graduating quickly is because they're kind of focusing on these like quote unquote easier degrees down here with less like oscillations or less difficulty points. What they're doing is they're picking these degrees and then they're trying really hard and they're compressing the oscillation, if you will, into a shorter time period instead of stretching it out over 4 years. That's all that's happening. Just to be transparent and kind of hammer this idea home a little bit, from my bachelor's degree at WGU, it took about 5.5 months to do like the whole bachelor's degree with like all the certs and everything. So right now I'm actually like working on another bachelor's degree from WGU. I'm doing computer science, and right now I'm working on calculus, and just that class alone, and I already studied calculus before, by the way. So just calculus alone is going to take me probably like 2 months to complete. Just that one class is going to take me 2 months, whereas the whole bachelor's in IT took me 5.5 months. That's like, you know, that's kind of the difference in like what I'm trying to talk about with like academic rigor and like difficulty and like all the oscillations and difficulty points here. People can finish it fast because the curriculum is more easy and they're trying really hard and being really disciplined about it. That's why people can finish like a bachelor's in business or human resources or whatever in a really short amount of time, because they're trying hard and the curriculum is not really that rigorous. It's legitimate. The curriculum is legitimate. It's just not that difficult to absorb versus like something that's like really hard, like, you know, calculus-based kinematics or calculus-based thermodynamics or something like this. So looking at this graph again, the reason why WGU is actually so good is they remove this whole like 4 limit time constraint thing and put that in the hands of the students. So the students, if they don't want to spend 4 years on getting a degree, they don't want to spend like 4 years worth of tuition, they don't have to. They can, you know, organize their life and attack their curriculum much harder and finish in like half the time or a quarter of the time, or, you know, whatever they can do. That's where WGU is like really awesome. Now that I think about it and I'm looking at this, I feel it's like almost, I don't know if I'm allowed to say scam, but it's kind of like scammy to force somebody to spend like 4 years studying like a communications degree or a, you know, some some kind of degree like this when it could potentially be finished like way faster. I feel it's like a little bit shady to like lock someone in for 4 years, because people can just like bang out their work and just be like sitting around for like the rest of the quarter. It's just kind of strange to me. So WGU, good job on, you know, removing that time constraint. I understand there's like a lot of disciplines where you can't usually do this, like nursing, for example. Nursing, you know, demands like a lot of respect because you're dealing with like human lives, and there's like an obvious time constraint with nursing because you have to do like clinicals. You have to get like a certain number of clinical hours in. Like you have to go to the hospital and like be supervised and like take care of actual humans and stuff like this. So there's a lot of degrees where you can't really like fast track it, like distance learn it very easily. Like nuclear engineering, I think you need to have like a lab where you like freaking play with like plutonium and stuff. I'm just kidding, but I think there's like a lab where you have to like do stuff and like go and like use all expensive equipment. But it just depends. In general, for like the degrees where you can kind of do it from a distance, there's no real need to force and like stretch it out to last 4 years. But that's just my opinion anyway. But I think it's a good opinion. So if you're one of those people who are mad that someone completed their bachelor's degree in 6 months, what you're actually mad about is one or all of the following 3 things. You may be mad that the degree they chose was too easy for some reason. You might not have liked that. You're mad because the person had pre-existing knowledge, good time management skills, and a lot of drive and discipline that allowed them to complete in 6 months. Maybe you don't like that for some reason. I don't know. Or maybe you're mad because you spent $80K in 4 years only to graduate with a bachelor's degree in history, and you feel others should be subject to the same opportunity and monetary cost as you were. I don't want to get like too inflammatory here, but none of these scenarios like really make sense. And if you look at what's actually happening, the degrees that people are choosing, and then the aggression that they're attacking them with, like a WGU, it makes sense that they would graduate fast. And it also, like on the flip side, it doesn't make sense to stretch something out that could be completed in like 2 years or less. It doesn't make sense to stretch that out to 4 years and require the person to pay for that like 4-year block of time. That doesn't make sense. You just gotta like think about it logically, like, please. We aren't talking about someone going from 0 to like a bachelor's in thermodynamics in 6 months, because that's not, I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's really not probable. We're talking about like average people going from like some like, you know, maybe they have some work experience, because it's a lot of working adults in WGU. So we're taking like an average person, and then they're completing like a, you know, IT management degree in like a year or something like that. It's not that unheard of, and it's not that weird. And I don't think the degree should be devalued just because they completed a bachelor, like a 4-year degree in 1 year. It's weird to call it a 4-year degree, by the way. It doesn't make sense to quantify a bachelor's degree in years, because if you look at this graph, this is like accurate in the sense that like there's a large discrepancy in the difficulty of some disciplines. That is like an objective truth. So people shouldn't be looked down upon for like, you know, compressing the time that it takes to finish a degree. I hope this makes sense, because it makes sense to me in my head, and I hope that this kind of visualization, like if you were like of the mindset before of like, oh, you should take 4 years, I hope that you can like open your mind a little bit and kind of realize I guess what's happening. Having said all that, there's some negative things about WGU. Like if you're like a freshly graduated high school and you're kind of looking for that college experience where you hang out with your friends and you live in the dorm and like go to the cafe and like these events and like parties and stuff, like you don't really get any of that at WGU. Maybe you'll get like a Slack channel or something, and like maybe like a mentor to talk to sometimes, but pretty much that whole like college experience is like, it's like out of the window. Also, like there is kind of like a little bit of a network at WGU. It's weak, obviously, because it's like an online school, but they're trying to build one, I guess, like kind of a support system to like kind of help you look for jobs and stuff afterwards. But it doesn't really compare to like an actual like state school, or like a really, you know, obviously like an Ivy League school where you have like an awesome network. The network is like also lacking a little bit. Also, if you need like a lot of personal like interhuman contact and interpersonal relationships and stuff, that's kind of hard to get at WGU. Again, like you'll get a Slack channel and like a mentor, but I didn't like make any friends, I guess, from my classmates there, is what I'm trying to say. So there's just like less like interpersonal like relationships, and you know, it's a lot of just like you and some coffee and like your laptop most of the time. So those are the things. If you're really looking for that kind of experience, like WGU, It's probably not the best school for you to go to, but since we're in the pandemic, WGU is like it's a pretty good choice, to be honest. So if you don't really care about missing out on the social aspects and you just want to get your degree out of the way without spending like 4 years or tens of thousands of dollars, WGU is probably the best choice for that, assuming they have the degree that you want to do. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. I feel like this video might like irritate some people, so if you're one of those people who are mad, please say something in the comments and we can talk about it. I'm really interested to have like a dialogue with you. So yeah, if you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. And thanks again for the 1,000 subscribers. It's really freaking nuts. It was so fast. But yeah, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. ほら、ほらほら。数学練習。Woo!